The Last Command, a dueling deck builder, or a dual deck builder. Well, it's a two-player only deck building game where you're building two decks and you're dueling against each other. So as many duels as you want to put in there, this game has them all. So if you are going to be interested in getting this before you even hear my thoughts, you can go ahead and check out the page on Sentient Games to purchase it. There's a link in our description down below. If you're wanting some more information on it, well, then stick around after the break and I'm going to tell you how I think it fits. All right, so as I said, it's a deck building game, and deck building games are a big mechanism that Bri really enjoys because she loves playing cards and collecting cards and just card games in general. And with deck building games being focused on cards, it's a natural fit for her. But for me, when you're looking at deck building games, a lot of times they don't necessarily really give you a sense or a feeling or thematic. There are some out there that do, but for the most part, it's like you're basically trying to grab the best cards and just play cards and just do all of that. The Last Command does a really good job of actually putting you in the feeling of running that spaceship with this deck building mechanism. Because you have three different areas where you're going to be playing cards, it's not going to just be putting out random cards. You're going to have to, work on like basically your weapon systems, your comms, all those different elements. And then you're going to make sure you have to have the crew in order to man it and give the power so you can use those abilities. So it does a really good job of instilling that theme and that flavor to really give you that sense of playing the game and managing the spaceship in that way. And then even outside of the feeling and the theme, just kind of the feeling when you're playing it. So you'd think a dueling game where you're doing damage and malfunctioning your opponent's ships and all of that, you would have this very cutthroat or mean feel to it. And that element can be there and it can be really instilled if you want. But there are kind of ways where, if you build your deck certain ways, it doesn't feel like that as much. And then even those malfunction cards, I'll get into those a little bit later, but those don't even necessarily give you this like feeling of really full on hindrance because a lot of them do let you draw those extra cards. So even there, like, yeah, you're taking damage, but it doesn't feel as much of a hindrance as some other games that like clog your deck with these horrible cards are, because a lot of them don't take up room in your hand. You'll still be able to draw a card. So it does really kind of mitigate that cutthroat and mean feeling in regards to that. And the fact that there are so many cards that can help you like mitigate those or heal or get rid of them does a good job of also then mitigating and not really giving you that mean feel, because you are able to weed those out of your deck and not use them. And if one is really bad, it's really bad once and then it goes away, which is also another way of making it not feel like this overwhelming burden on you. And with the feeling being out of the way, let's go ahead and look at what's inside the box. I did do a unboxing of this game. There will be a link right up above if you want to see what is all inside. And I will say this is a really nice production. For it basically being a deck building game with a couple of decks, the box is big, but that's because it comes with two neoprene playmats for the players that sprawled out, and they have a spot for the cards, which is a really nice touch, because a lot of games would have just given you like these like cheap little boards or like little paper mats or even just nothing at all, and you just had to kind of make sure you paid attention to where you were going. But this one does go that extra mile and gives you that really good quality of life neoprene mat to lay out with a section for everything. The art on each one is different depending on which side you're playing, so they didn't even go just generic art and just whatever side you are, you just have to know. They did do that, and then the scene on it even has you fighting the other ship, so what the other ship looks like is on there. So just that attention to detail to make it feel like a good user experience with it and not just a pasted on component that got thrown in the box. The cards themselves also feel really nice. The art looks really cool, really fits the theme, has that nice futuristic and clean artwork that is going to immerse you in, again, that future, that spacecraft battle, the sci-fi element of it. All that art works well there. The cards have a really nice layout. Everything is explained well on them. All the symbology works really well. They really do make sure you can understand what's going on with the cards. And if you can't, the rulebook itself is well written. There's a glossary with all the different cards that need further explanation. If there's a difference in the solo rule, that is listed in there. And then just walking you through the game in essence, in general, with that rule book, did a really good job of making sure you understand everything, kind of giving you examples, laying stuff out, walking you through step by step and telling you exactly how it goes. And it's not an overly complicated game in regards, but so the rule book isn't massive, but it's the right size to be able to convey how to play properly. Moving on to two-player changes, there is no two-player changes. This is a 1 to 2 player game. So there is no change for a two-player setup. There's a change for a solo. I'll get into all that when I talk about my thoughts on solo. But with that, let's move on to gameplay. If you're wondering how it plays, I did do a how to play. Again, I will link that right up above. So kind of getting back into maybe one of my issues with deck builders in general that this one changed up and addressed, especially with the way it plays out, is you're kind of always maybe like searching for a card for a strategy, or maybe one card relies on having this other type of card. So now you're just searching through this deck of cards trying to find that. Well, the way that this game lays out the market, where you have a deck for each type of system and a deck for each type of crew member, so you always have options to buy unless the deck gets run out, and then there are no more options. But you always have these options of, if you want the red attacking cards, well, there's always 2 on display you can go ahead and grab. There's always 2 of the green, there's always 2 of the blue, there's always the crew members. So you really are able to kind of adjust your plan to how you want to play. I mean, are the cards going to be the exact specific card that does the exact specific damage you want? No, but you are going to have the option of being able to grab one of those attacking cards, one of the healing cards, etc. So really being able to, like I said, manage what you're buying and how it's going to go into your deck and how you're going to shape your deck. They did a really good job of, like I said, designing it with those markets. And then getting into those markets and how you're building the 2 different decks. That's another nice strategic element in this, is when you're drawing your hand of 3 cards, which decks are you going to focus on? Because if a deck runs out and you need to draw a card, you've just reset that whole line. So maybe you had some nice bonuses and synergies going between those at the end of your turn. So you really want to try and manage which ones are you grabbing, which ones are you going to be fine resetting. And you're going to have to reset them at some point, because you are going to need to be able to play those crew members back out to increase the power in order to play other cards. So there is that really good balance there of, you can't just kind of leave stuff out there too long, otherwise you're not going to be able to play the new stuff. So you are going to have to cycle those things through in order to be able to optimize and use the cards you get. And then I already kind of touched on it, those malfunction cards. That's another strategic element, because when you add one, you get to choose which deck it goes into. So are you going to put it in the one that, you can see, well, they just reshuffled that, so I'm going to hold off, or they're going to be reshuffling it soon, or you're going to load up all of their system ones, knowing that they're going to have to kind of cycle through those, and then just really, hinder them when they do the one type of draw where they can just get malfunction after malfunction after malfunction. Because like I said, that was the thing I really enjoyed, is a lot of them are, you draw the card, all right, you do the thing, you discard, and you draw another card. So it's not really, like I said, going to really hinder you fully. It is going to do damage. It might take away some of your power, but you are going to still usually have that hand of cards. There are a couple out there that do not allow you to draw another card, but those are very few in that malfunction deck. The one issue I did personally have with the malfunction deck, I know Bry wasn't a big fan, is that when you get rid of a malfunction, you put it on the top. So I mean, that is kind of a strategic element of, I'm going to get rid of this bad one, and then I'm going to be able to give this to my opponent, etc. I think I kind of would have liked to maybe like cycle them through the bottom or something, because if you're going back and forth, you're kind of getting the same malfunctions here and there. So that is just one kind of thing, maybe cycling them, shuffling them somehow, something to kind of get some variety in the malfunctions where you aren't getting the same one on top. All right, let's wrap up with my solo thoughts. As I said, I did a solo play. I'm going to put a link to that up above. So how the solo play works is you are going to set up the solo player's deck by shuffling their system and crew cards together. They don't have separate decks. It's all going to be one big deck. You're going to make them their own specific market deck based on difficulty you want to do. Is you're going to grab so many cards randomly from the different market decks, shuffle them together, and that's where they're going to gain their market cards from. And then it's basically, once they reach a certain number of spending power, they'll be grabbing cards and adding them to their deck. So I will say, for me personally, this is not a solo mode I personally enjoy doing. There is a lot of kind of upkeep and planning and kind of playing for them. There is a order of operations, like first they're going to do this, and then they're going to do that, and then they're going to do this. But a lot of that is going to kind of make you having to make decisions for them that's best for them and kind of bad for you. Or there are certain cards, like I said, that operate differently in a solo mode. So if you aren't sure, you do have to consult the rulebook for that. So it is a bit more overhead and upkeep than I personally like. So if you are one who does like that more involved solo mode of managing the other player and yourself, this one will work out well for you. It is one that I can tell they took time and refined and really kind of laid it out and made sure to make it a smooth experience for solo players. It's just like I said, it's not my personal preference of a solo mode, but I still find it a well done solo mode. But that brings me to how do I think it fits? I think this is an excellent fit for us. I am going to give this a 9 out of 10. This is one that we had seen it, or Bri had seen at Origins. I was off doing who knows what, but she was saw it at Origins, really liked it. We kept kind of talking about it, reached out to the publisher and were able to get a copy of it to cover here on the channel for you, and I am really glad that we did. I can see why she was infatuated with this one. It's because of managing the two decks is a really cool twist on the deck builder, and how those two decks draw and operate together was another thing that set us apart. And then just a lot of times we don't like these dueling games because it seems like I'll just jump out to a big advantage because I've played Magic the Gathering before, so I know more of the strategic elements of it. But this one does a good job of balancing the different styles you want to do. A lot of the games we did, we were real evenly matched about how much damage we were doing to each other, because she may have been focusing more on giving me malfunction cards. I was focused on the attack cards, but it's not like I could go overwhelming with that strategy because I still had to manage the crew and get the systems going in there and whatnot. So again, that is why I think this is a 9 out of 10. A really good balance of the different strategy you can use, and a dueling game for those who aren't necessarily always a fan of the one-on-one versus games. All right, but like I said, if all of that does sound like something you would like and or interested in, there is a link to the store where you can find it down below in the description. While you're down there looking at that link, you could also go ahead and give us a like, a subscribe, a share, and a ring the bell. If you're looking for other games besides this, we do have a link to Miniature Market. You can go ahead and use that link, purchase some board games, and we get a portion of that back here to the channel. If you are instead looking to add some pep in your step, get energized and invigorated, then you can go ahead and check out Dubby. Again, we have a link down below, or you can use the code MEEPLES at dubby.gg to get a discount and give us credit for that sale. All right, now get out there and fight them off.